The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now logged into War Up on the WPIAL, featuring your hosts, Greg Warnock and Jeff Upson. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome into War Up on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson as we're going to recap the Southwest Regional AA Tournament as well as the AAA sections from this past weekend. And Jeff, you're coming back from Hershey, so you got one more Hershey trip to go, and that's the biggest one coming up.
The biggest one coming up in 2 weeks.
Did you survive this past weekend?
Yeah, I did. It was a little rough. I mean, I'm a little tired, but it's always the case. We did a live podcast there from Hershey. It was the AA and AAA tournament. So the AAA was the regional tournament, District 3 / South Central Regional. So the top four there already onto the state tournament. And then the AA, it was their district tournament. And they all move on to the Southeast region. But we got to see a lot of good wrestling. Edmund Ruth and Dalton Group wrestled in AA. That's a 1 versus a 3. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Do you like that where AA and AAA are all in that same arena and it all happens in one weekend like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice because they have the space for it. So it certainly is better than the old Giant Arena, the old Hershey Arena. The old barn was not conducive to have both those tournaments going on at the same time. I mean, attendance was like so-so. And of course, lo and behold, the Hershey Bears are playing. So as soon as
that always happens.
So as soon as wrestling was over, they're like, "Yeah, we got to get you out of here." Like even the media members, they're like, "You got to go like now." So that was kind of a pain, but
that seems to always happen that way at Hershey.
Yeah, well,
that they're playing that same.
So it was actually Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The only thing they wrestled yesterday on Saturday was the medal round matches. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, that's where the AA Southwest region was, and now these guys have off this upcoming weekend as they get set for Hershey. We'll talk about the guys within the WPIAL. At 106 pounds, Connor Redinger of Quaker Valley continued his strong season as he was your champion. 3 falls to get to the finals, and he wrestles Joey Fisher once again from South Park. He defeats him once again 2-0 this time, so a closer result for Redinger and Fisher. Fisher had to beat Ryan Michaels of Elizabeth Forward in the semis to get there. He defeated him 2-1. Michaels ends up coming in 4th place in the tournament, and your other WPI wrestler to qualify was Nate Yeagle of McGuffey. He finishes in 6th place. I think the most notable result here is Yeagle ends up pinning Trent Velocic of Burl in the second round of consolations, and that helps propel him into the top 6.
That was crazy. That was a crazy result for me. I mean, Nathan Yeagle comes in as District 7th place, so he finished 7th in the WPIAL and 6th in the region. So that was just an interesting result. He came in with a 29-15 record on the season. But, yeah, really good showing by the WPIAL here. They had 4 wrestlers who are going to go on to the state tournament. And Connor Redinger really looks like he is setting himself up for a state championship run. I mean, just the way he's been consistent. I mean, he pinned Baylor Shunk in the semifinals, a returning state medalist. So Redinger's, there's a reason he's number 2 behind Gary Steen from Reynolds because he's right there with him. I mean, this is going to be a good shot for WPIAL to get a championship.
Joey Fisher as well had a solid tournament here to get to the finals. Do you expect big things from him in 2 weeks? After
the way he beat Kai Burkett from Chestnut Ridge, he beat him 11-2 in the quarterfinals. Burkett's a guy who was ranked 5th in the state. He had beaten a guy named Jacob Blair, who was the number 1 ranked wrestler at the time. So, yeah, Joey Fisher, the way he's been wrestling, I can't expect him not to get on the podium here. And Ryan Michaels as well. You're looking at a guy who was 30-2 coming into the regional tournament and pinned Amani Ole from St. Joe's Academy. Now, he did drop. They wrestled again in the 3rd place match. He did lose to him 12-7. Ole was a guy who I thought was most likely going to be in the finals there against Redinger. So, really, I think you have 3 serious chances here for a medal.
And you look at Kai Burkett, he ended up losing to Ole, so he doesn't even advance to Hershey with just how the bracket fell. 113 pounds of WPIAL has 3 wrestlers advance to the state tournament here, and 2 of those guys made it into the semifinals. Ian Oswald of Burrell made it there with a 11-2 major decision over Jack Bruce of Baylor to get to the semis. He ends up falling in a tight ultimate tiebreaker match against Brock McMillan to drop down. He ends up finishing in 3rd place. Shane Kemper of Burgestown, we talked about a good path for him, and he does advance into the semifinals before losing to Josh Boozle, the eventual champion, 7-3. Kemper ends up falling down to 5th place, where he defeated Eddie Hune of Carlinton. Hune finishes in 6th place. Kemper beat him 5-3 in that 5th place match. Not too surprising. I don't think that Oswald and Kemper advanced because we thought they both had a good path to the semis. A little surprising, though, Eddie Hune coming through.
I was very surprised by Eddie Hune coming through here. He had a tough first-round match with Jack Bruce. He loses 11-7, but then drops down and wins 3 in a row here against some. He beat Doug Bittner from Mount Pleasant 1-0. I mean, that's a senior who, is coming in as the 3rd place finisher out of the WPIAL. So, yeah, I was very impressed with the way that Hune wrestled. But you look at Josh Boozle winning the championship. That was no surprise over Brock McMillan. But Brock McMillan had his hands full with Ian Oswald in the semifinals. So
120 pounds. WPIAL ends up with 3 qualifiers. Let's first start up top. The top seed, Brian Dawson from Hope for Heineman. He not only lost in the quarterfinals to the eventual champion, Zach Whitmer, who you mentioned was a guy that just got upset in the region in his District 6 tournament the previous week. Whitmer ends up coming in 1st place in the entire tournament. Dawson, meanwhile, he ends up going 1-2 and doesn't even qualify for the state tournament. Ty Simmerman of Derry, he ends up getting to the finals before losing to Whitmore 9-5. He did beat Byron Daubert of Forest Hills 4-3 to get to the finals. Daubert did pin Manny Dovshek, and also Kenny Dushek of Freedom lost 3-1 to Derek Christie in the winners bracket. But dropping down, those 2 guys both get to the 5th and 6th place match where Dovshek beats Dushek this time 3-2.
That's confusing. Dovshek and Dushek.
Imagine calling a whole 6-minute match with those 2.
And those 2 are wrestling, right? Yeah. They wrestled head to head. So yeah, that's a tough thing to do here, but I'm sure you could do it. You look at Ty Simmerman, and very impressed with the way he wrestled here to get to the finals against a very tough Zach Whitmer. He had a 4-3 win over Daubert, as you mentioned, and Daubert's a guy who I thought probably could have been the top seed here at 120, but as you mentioned, Zach Whitmer, he does get a win over returning state medalist Derek Christie, and then he goes on to win the championship over Ty Simmerman. But overall, I think it was a good weight for the WPIAL. And
I think this is one of the deepest weights as well, 1 through 6. This is a very talented group. Any of them could come away with a medal in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and 3 of these top 6 finishers are all freshmen. So, the future looks bright here from the Southwest region.
126 pounds, Gavin Teasdale of Jefferson Morgan. He gets his 4th Southwest Regional title. He wrestles Sean Broadway for the 3rd time in 2 weeks, and he defeats Broadway this time 11-4, so the gap closes a little bit from a tech fall to a major and now a decision. Broadway had to defeat ZJ Ward of Freedom in the semifinals. He does it with a 1-0 score to get to the final. Ward had a big win over Garrett Cornell of Everett. He beat him 5-4 to get to the matchup against Broadway, but Cornell ends up coming back for 3rd. He defeats Jet Pattison of McGuffey in that 3rd place match. Pattison and Ward wrestled in the consolation semifinals, where Pattison beat Ward 6-1, and then Ward ended up finishing in 5th place.
Yeah, and we see that Broadway's closing the gap a little bit on Teasdale. I think we've grown accustomed to seeing Teasdale just dominate his way through tournaments, especially the region and state tournaments. So, good job by Sean Broadway. And same with ZJ Ward, getting a good win, as you said, over Garrett Cornell. So, again, looked like the WPIAL had a better tournament than I expected here at 126, getting several guys to the state tournament.
132 pounds. This one was kind of all over the place, really. Alex Miskovich of Mount Pleasant ends up being your champion. He wins 6-3 over second-place finisher Donovan Chambers of Elwood City. Chambers and Trent Schulteis, our guest from last week, wrestled yet again. Chambers gets the best of him yet again. He defeats him 2-1 in the quarterfinals. Chase Proudfit of Pencambria wrestled Anthony Corrado of Burrell in the first round. Proudfit beats him 4-3. Proudfit then ends up getting into the semifinals, where Chambers Chambers beats him 1-0. So that drops down into the consolations. A guy by the name of John Rocco Cazales, you guys remember him, right? Jacob Powers defeats him 4-2 in the quarterfinals. So that's going to match up Rocco Cazales and Corrado. One of the two isn't going to go to the state tournament. And it's Corrado who ends up winning there, 4-2 in that matchup. So Rocco Cazales, a guy who at one time was ranked number 1 in the state, is not going to be advancing on to Hershey. Corrado ends up winning 4 straight matches to get to the 3rd and 4th place match, including beating Chase Proudfit in the consolation semifinals to finish in 4th. Trent Schulteis of Freedom, meanwhile, he ends up finishing in 5th place. So 4 of the top 6 here from the WPIAL.
There was not a more screwed up bracket in the history of wrestling than this 132-pound.
It was wild.
This was insane. I mean, after last week watching District 6 and District 7, I mean, who would have thought that these 6 would finish the way that they did? Miskovich, as we mentioned, had a drop in the finals of the WPIL to Schulteis, and he comes out and just destroys the competition in a way that I wasn't expecting. He beats Jacob Powers from St. Joe's Academy, who came in very highly ranked. He was number 3 in the state, but as you said, John Rocco Cazales, a guy who was a state medalist last year and ranked as high as number 1 this year, is not going to the state tournament, which is, I mean, that's just insane to me. So, and Donovan Chambers, sneaky good here. I mean, he was 5th last week at the WPIL, comes in number 2 here at the regions. Donovan Chambers, and we mentioned how, he's just able to figure out Schulteis. It's a bad matchup for Trent, and Donovan Chambers gets it done. But not only that, but he beats Proudfit as well, 1-0. So this was just a crazy, crazy bracket, and I'm not sure what to expect come 2 weeks in Hershey, because anything's possible. I'm assuming that Chase Proudfit's probably going to win a state championship, because that's the way things have been going so far at 132.
Well, they get 4 chances, does the WPIL, so you got to like their odds of coming home with a medal. Question is, who's it going to be? It could be any of the 4. I really think it could.
Yeah, I agree, and it's just it's been wild. It's been a wild ride for these guys, and it's nice to see that 2 freshmen are going to be making the trip. Anthony AJ Corrado, as you mentioned, and Trent Schulteis. So good job for them.
138 pounds, one of the weaker weight classes for the WPIAL, which we talked about last week. They do not get a medalist in the top 6 here at 138. Jake Pale and Henri Stort did wrestle for a second time, and Pale beats him 5-1 in overtime. Pale was 1 win shy, though, as was Ethan Osborough, both 1 win shy.
Yeah, and I wasn't surprised here to see that happen. As we mentioned last week, that 138 was just a little bit of a weaker weight class for the WPIL, and I didn't think that they were going to be able to squeeze anyone in here, and just with the depth that District 5 and District 6 had. So not a lot of surprise here, but Jake Pale does fall. He has a good win over Henri Stort, so he's no joke as we've seen, and he has another year to come back. He's only a junior, so it is what it is here at 138.
145 pounds, a strong showing for the WPIAL as they finish 1-2-3. Joe Demore of Southside ends up winning the title. He defeats Michael Cusick of South Fayette 3-2. Cusick had a win over Tyler Griffiths of Southmoreland in the semis 5-4 to get to the finals. He also had a big win over Alex Caldwell of Ligonier Valley in the quarterfinals 7-4. Caldwell actually was a win away from even advancing, because he and Austin Lee, Berlin Brothers Valley, were on that bottom half, so one of them wasn't going to make it. Caldwell does not end up advancing. So the WPIAL, though, here finishes 1-2-3 with Demore, Cusick, and then Griffiths.
Another wacky weight class here is 145 pounds, and Alex Caldwell, a guy who was 5th last year in the state, is not going to the state tournament. Joe Demore, talk about how consistent he's been the last few weeks. I was impressed with him last week at the WPILs, and I'm even more impressed this week after watching what he did in the Southwest region here, beating another tough WPIAL wrestler in Michael Cusick. Good job for Michael Cusick as well. I mean, I think when we talked with South Fayette's coach, we talked about how he's kind of had a roller coaster career. He's had ups and downs, and it's good for him to get to the state tournament and get to the regional finals.
And winning some of those bigger matches, and that's what he did here. He beats Caldwell, Ligonier Valley, and then he beats Griffiths of Southmoreland, 2 back-to-back huge wins.
A state runner-up he beat in the semifinals of regional, so he needed that big win, and he got it. He did fall short, but still a really good showing by these top 3 finishers here at 145 pounds.
152 pounds. Thane Lawrence of Fraser coming in has been looking red hot, but he does fall short of winning a Southwest Regional title. He finishes in second place. He loses to Justin McCoy of Chestnut Ridge by major decision, 10-1. Corey Christie of Burrow also lost by major decision to McCoy in the semifinals. Christie ends up finishing in fourth place as the only two coming on the WPIAL at 152.
This very well could be a state finals right here between McCoy and Lawrence. They're both ranked number 1 and 2, but man, McCoy's is really showing how tough he is. I mean, majoring a very, very tough Thane Lawrence, 10-1. Very impressed with the way Juddy's wrestling right now. I think he's poised to get that second state title. And Thane's he's got to readjust. He's got 2 weeks to do it to get back to the drawing board and figure out what he can do a little bit better.
160 pounds of WPIAL with one finisher in the top 6, and that was Sean Gates of Burrow. He had a tough day, though, in opening it out. Jared Stoy of Penn Cambria defeats him 8-5, and that dropped Gates down into the consolation, but he ends up winning 4 matches, including beating Stoy in the consolation semifinal 6-3 before he finishes in 4th place. Also, I mentioned two guys, actually, from the WPIAL, as Jaden Gordon of Central Valley also advances into the top 6, as he was a 6th place finisher. He lost his opening match to Cole Sosong of Portage by fall, but then he ends up pulling off 3 straight wins to get into the top 6.
And there's always a guy like Jaden Gordon who comes out of nowhere to make it to the state tournament. I mean, here's a guy who was he was the 6th place finisher out of the WPIAL, so just barely made it. He's only has 23 matches on the year so far. He came in 15-8. Loses the first round by fall, but then squeaks out just some wins after win after win, and to make it into the round of top 6. And then Sean Gates, I was impressed with the way he wrestled. As you had mentioned, he comes back and defeats the wrestler who put him in the consolations, and then wrestles Cole Salsing pretty tough here too. So very, very, I expected 1 here from the WPIAL, wasn't expecting 2.
And he also had a big one over John Dale of Moshannon Valley by fall to get to the top 6 round as well, did Gates. Yeah,
John Dale's a guy who came in ranked number 13th in the state, was a state qualifier last year. So for Gates to come away with a medal here and an advance to the state tournament, very good for him.
170 pounds. The WPIAL ends up finishing with 3 guys going to the state tournament. Your 3rd and 4th place finisher is not a surprise. Christian Clutter of McGuffey, your 4th place finisher. He loses to Jaden Datz of Southmoreland. Datz is your 3rd place finisher, a 1-0 decision for Datz in that 3rd place match. The 6th place finisher, though, Austin Malee of Burrell. He ends up losing his first match to Derek Brown of Penn Cambria. Brown ended up finishing in 2nd place. And then Malee gets 3 straight wins before losing to Christian Clutter 6-2 to drop down to 5th and 6th. You've seen us out of the Burrell guys. And I think it's just because they're so battle-tested, right? From Malee, you also have Sean Gates, and you also saw from Corrado. Guys who lost in the opening round but pull off 3 or 4 wins to get to Hershey.
Yeah, that's a Burrell tradition right there. I mean, those guys you never count them out. Even if they lose that first round match, they're tough nuts to crack there, especially in the wrestlebacks. But here I was very high on Christian Clutter last week. I thought maybe he would have a chance to get into the finals. In fact, I picked him to get to the finals. And he has a setback against Derek Brown, which is, that's a good loss there. And then the Jaden Datz, I was surprised to see Datz was able to squeeze out a 1-0 win over him. So that was a good, even though it was a rematch from the WPIAL finals, I thought Clutter was looking good. So overall, though, you have to be happy with 3 guys from the WPIAL going to states.
Datz and Clutter wrestling 3 times in the last 2 weeks, section finals, and then Datz kind of closing the gap a little bit in the WPIAL finals, a tight match, and then he turns it around here the 3rd time around.
Yeah, good showing by Datz to get away with a win here in a critical time here. 182
pounds. Your champion was John Vargo of Bentworth. He has a big win over Kyle Myers of West Branch in the finals, 5-2 to win the title. Jeff Magan of Quaker Valley, he comes back to finish in 3rd place after falling in the quarterfinals to Myers, 7-4. Magan won 4 straight matches to get 3rd. And the WPIAL also with a 5th place finisher as well, Luke Shingle of McGuffey. He gets the 5th place nod.
Yeah, 182 pounds for the WPIAL. We're missing a guy by the name of Dom Fundy, who was a returning state runner-up from last year. So John Vargo really takes advantage of that absence and comes out and wins a championship. I thought, Kyle Myers Myers was definitely a guy who was going to give him a test, and very impressive, by the way, Varga wrestled, and really just the top three here from the WPL, all really shining.
Yeah, and should have an opportunity to be able to get on the medal stand in Hershey in 2 weeks. 195 pounds. Mentioned Bryson Miller has looked strong, and he continued to look strong here in the Southwest Regional Tournament. He is your champion at 195. He defeated Levi Hockenberry of Mount Union by major decision. He didn't get the opportunity to wrestle Hunter Tremaine of North Star as he won by default, but the way Miller's been wrestling, I think he would have had a strong showing against Tremaine. So Miller is your champion at 195. Also, Tyler Stein of Summit Academy and Dalton Lowe of McGuffey both headed to the state tournament. They wrestled in a 5th and 6th place match. Stein beats him 3-1.
Yeah, and I think this is I'm interested to know what's going on with Tremaine, make sure he's, I'm not sure why he medical forfeited that, but I thought, like you said, Bryson Miller would probably give him a good match there. And really, Bryson Miller's just wrestling really tough over these last 2 weeks. And overall, the WPIAL, you got Stein in as well as Law from McGuffey, the top 3 finishers here from the WPIAL. So really good showing, and they wrestled pretty tough.
220 pounds, Dom DeLuca of Derry takes on Landon Fisher of Huntington in the semis, and he avenges his loss. He beats him 3-0 to get to the finals, and he gives Anthony Walters Bishop McCourt a test. He drops a 5-3 decision to finish in 2nd place, but DeLuca a strong showing against Walters. Also for the WPIAL, they had 2 other guys advance on. Connor Main of West Green, he finishes in 5th place after getting to the semifinals, and also Ryan Morrow of Southmoreland, he finishes in 6th place.
Yeah, and talk about, DeLuca avenging that loss. He got pinned by Fisher at the team state tournament a few weeks back, and he comes away with a 3-0 win. I thought that was a very critical win for him to set him up against Anthony Walters, a guy who comes up from 195. And this is really a match that I could really expect to happen again in 2 weeks here. This is these two are ranked number 1 and 3, but that was before DeLuca was able to avenge his loss to Fisher. So I could see this match happening again. But you look on the other side of the coin, Connor Main, who's a WPIAL runner-up. We've seen him continue just to impress. When he was at Waynesburg, when he was at West Green, I think we really have seen him come into his own, and really good showing by him and Morrow, who's only a junior.
285 pounds, the biggest win of the finals, coming here at 285. Bishop McCoy of Southside knocks off Josiah Jones of Bishop McCourt. He beats him 3-1 in overtime to win the Southwest region. Jones was tested by the WPIAL. He had to wrestle David Schufert of Valley in the semis, and he won by 2-1 in a tiebreaker. And he also had to wrestle Cody Vokes of Mount Pleasant. He beats him 3-2 in the quarterfinals. So Jones tested by District 7. McCoy comes away with the title. Schufert ends up in 3rd place from Valley, and Cody Vokes of Mount Pleasant finishes in 5th. So
all 3 of these WPIAL wrestlers, the top 3 finishers from a week ago, are going on to states. And Bishop McCoy had to be the biggest win of the finals here, knocking out the number 1 ranked wrestler in the state in Josiah Jones. And Bishop McCoy's, he's continued to just impress me, and he's obviously peaking at the right time. He's on firing on all cylinders right now, so that sets him up beautifully for the state tournament.
Joining us now on the show is the champion at 285 pounds, Bishop McCoy of Southside. Bishop, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, talk a little bit about your tournament from this past weekend. You've really done well over these last couple of weeks. Talk about first your confidence level. How are you feeling right now? Do you feel like you're wrestling at the top of your game?
Yeah, I feel like I'm peaking at the right moment.
As far as the Southwest Regional goes, obviously you had a tight one in the quarterfinals against Quentin Franklin, but really just kind of held your own and were able to coast into the finals before getting to the matchup with Josiah Jones. Did you know a lot about him going into that matchup?
Yeah, I wrestled Josiah my sophomore year at the regionals, and I wrestled him a couple times over the summer, like in freestyle and stuff. And I had a game plan really going into it. Just tried to stick with it because I've been wanting to wrestle him again since sophomore year because he beat me in the quarterfinals.
Do you feel like you were able to control the match and wrestle your tempo?
Yeah, I feel like I was able to control him a little bit because he was giving up some size because he's a little smaller than I am because he's at 220 most of the year and bumped up. And I'm 280, he's around 240. So size helped a little bit. but I knew he was real quick and he's real athletic. So I knew that he was going to be able to get some shots, and I knew I was just going to have to try to dictate the pace for most of the part.
In the match going into overtime, after 1-1, after the regulation time, were you nervous at all going into overtime, or did you feel comfortable?
I felt comfortable because I was used to, like, I don't know, I was comfortable in my game.
And Bishop, last year you went to the state tournament for the first time and you got your first medal, finishing 5th. What has that done for you? You know, make you hungrier to come back and get a little higher up than 5th place?
Yeah, it was pretty cool going there for the first time, winning a medal, and I was a little sad because I lost the kid who took 3rd. I can't remember his name. He's from Sectional Valley. I was winning the match, and he caught me in a front headlock, and I got stuck, and then I dropped down for 5th and 6th. But Blake Reynolds had a injury default, so I got 5th. So I was kind of bummed that I didn't get a wrestle again. But
going back this year, I mean, you have that experience under your belt. You had, you're not going to be shell shocked by walking into the Giant Center. And you come in to this weekend, you ranked 3rd in the state. Josiah Jones was number 1. So, I would expect you're going to be in that top 3. So when you look at that, do you feel an added pressure now that, hey, you kind of have a bullseye on your back because you're the champion of the Southwest region and you just beat the number 1 kid in the state?
Yeah, I feel like most people are going to want to try to come at me and beat me because I beat the number 1 kid. But most of the year, my dad always tells me I always got a bullseye on my back because I'm one of the top-ranked kids, and everybody's going to come and wrestle you hard because they want to prove themselves, I guess.
What's it like having your dad in the corner with you? Is it good to have him there, and or is it sometimes a little bit of pressure on you?
It's a little bit of both. Sometimes it's good, and then sometimes it's just like he's in dad mode, he's in coach mode, and it's hard to separate the two. Yeah,
I could see that, Bishop, being a little difficult because for him as well, especially trying to coach you as a coach, but at the same time keeping his head because you have that extra emotion going on. But I'm sure that gives you a little extra motivation as well because you see how invested he is and how well you do. So I'm sure that's added motivation for you.
Yep.
And also, it's got to be fun, too. You got a teammate with you, winning a Southwest Regional Championship, Joe DeMore. What's it like having a teammate having the same success you are?
It's really good. It's good that we both win. We both push each other because we both compete with each other. We see you can do better and stuff. I know it's good to have somebody with you though. That it's winning with you. It just pushes you to do better too.
Now, I hope you two aren't pushing each other in the room. 145 and 280. That could be a little dangerous there. Joe DeMore may not make it to the States if he wrestles with you for the next 2 weeks.
We wrestle most of the time, but I don't use my size.
For him, that's a good thing for him. That's a good thing that you don't use your size.
Yeah.
Unless he irritates you that day, right?
What'd you say?
Unless he irritates you that day, right?
Yeah. And sometimes he gets a little bit of the size.
Well, hey, Bishop, congratulations on winning the Southwest Regional, and best of luck as you head to Hershey here in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bishop.
Bishop McCoy of Southside for joining us on the show. And do you think he and Jones have another date set at Hershey?
I mean, they very well could. I mean, Danny Scheib from Tri-Valley is going to have something to say about that. He was a runner-up last year. But, I think it's going to be a three-man race here between Jones, Scheib, and McCoy. So, do
you think Schufert can get in that mix too? I mean, he wrestled McCoy tough in the WPIAL finals. He wrestles Jones to overtime, finishes in third.
I mean, absolutely. He's right in the mix. So, I would expect him to be on the hunt for at least a medal.
The 4 sections in AAA took place this past weekend, so we'll talk about some of the notable results for you and then also get you set for the WPIAL championships which will go over the schedule and let you know when wrestling is going to get underway at Cannon McMillan. Let's first start in Section 1, where Curtis Phipps of Norman was your champion. Carter Dybert of Franklin Regional finishes number 2. He defeats Brady Sherback of Latrobe in the semifinals 3-1 to get to the final. Sammy Starr of Kiski was your 4th place finisher. Ethan Bergman of Hempfield was your 5th. But overall, I think the biggest, I wouldn't say it's a surprise, but Diver beating Sherback is a big win for him.
I mean, that's a freshman against a senior. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good win for him. Sherback's a guy who's down to 106 this year after being at 113 last year. So, yeah, it's a good win for Dybert, who, has impressed me basically all season at the King of Mountain, the Powerade. So, yeah, I wasn't surprised to see him win that, but you always want to see, the best competition. We definitely saw that.
I think 106 in Section 1 is pretty deep as far as that goes. So
I would say so. I mean, all 3 of them are ranked top 10 in the state, so I would say it's pretty deep.
126 pounds, Gabe Willishow of Latrobe. He bumps up, and he gets the title. He defeats Zach McCann of Franklin Regional 6-4 to come away as a Section 1 champ.
I was not surprised to see Gabe Willishow moving up to 126, considering how much of a logjam there is down at 120 with Logan Macri, Louis Newell. You got Wyatt Henson as well, Darren Miller, all guys that are ranked top 10 in the state. So Willishow, as you said, has a good tournament. He beats a tough Zach McCann from Franklin Regional, who beat Justin Perkins from Penn Hills. We haven't seen him very often this year. He's only wrestled 16 matches this year, but McCann was able to get a 4-3 win, and then Perkins took 3rd.
132 pounds, Camacho Franklin Regional defeats McCoy of Penn Trafford 5-2 to win the title there. 145 pounds, Job Chisco of Penn Trafford avenges a loss against Cam Connor of Kiski. He beats him 2-0 in the final to win the section championship. 2
losses, actually. Cam Connor has beaten Job twice this year, so that was a really good showing by Job Chisco to come out and beat Connor, a guy who's highly ranked in the state, and he beat him 2-0. So, yeah, I expect these guys most likely to see each other again in the next week.
145 did not include Luke Kemmerer of Hempfield. He bumps up to 152 pounds for the postseason, and he defeats Jack Bloomer of Kiski 6-4 to win the section title.
Yeah, and this was his first real test at 152 pounds. He hasn't wrestled there, but a guy by the name of Sammy Sasso's down to 145. So if Luke really wanted to get that state title, 152, a little bit of a weaker weight. You don't have Sammy Sasso there, so a little bit more wide open. But Luke Kemmer, it's not going to be an easy ride for him. You're going up 7 pounds, and you're going to a weight where a lot of guys are coming down from 60. But Jack Bloomer gave him all he could handle. He's tough, so a 6-4 win here. I'm very interested to see Luke next weekend and seeing how he can do.
Outside of those matches, not a lot of other notable results to me in Section 1.
No, I mean, everything, this was this is always a sort of a deep section here. So
Section 2, 126 pounds, Logan Saliga of Bell Vernon. He was your champion, and he defeats Mason Franks of Connellsville by injury default. I think the biggest question is Franks going to be healthy off this weekend for WPIALs?
Yeah, that's really a big question here, because Mason Franks is a guy who's highly ranked in the state. He has a win over Ed Scott from Du Bois. Really has been wrestling tough this year, so I'm interested to see if he's going to continue on, if this is just a precautionary issue. And Saliga is a guy, I think he was down at 120 for some of the time this year, so him moving up to 126. Gabe Willishow, I'm sure, pretty interested in seeing the status of Mason Franks as well, because that opens up, if he's not there, that opens up another spot.
145 pounds, a big tournament for Jackson Gray of Mount Lebanon. He beats Colton Gizero of Peters Township by fall in the semis. Gizero ends up finishing in 5th place here in the section. And then he wins by major decision, 18-7 over Grant Walnoa of Upper St. Clair to win the title. Huge tournament for Gray.
Probably one of the most impressive performances of Section 2 had been Jackson Gray for me. He's kind of had an up and down season. He's took some losses that he probably shouldn't have, but he really looked good here in the section. As you said, getting a fall and then a major in the final. So he set up nicely for the WPIAL championship.
160 pounds, a big-time matchup between Zach Hartman of Bell Vernon and Luke Stout of Mount Lebanon. Hartman wins 10-6, a little bit closer than I think some people may have expected.
And Hartman, he rolled to a really big lead, but then Stout was able to get, I believe, 3 takedowns in the 3rd period. So I don't know what the deal was there, but Stout is very tough. He's obviously a really good wrestler. He was a state qualifier last year and has looked really good all season. So if Hartman can be exposed like that, Stout could have his number. So I don't know. We'll see.
170 pounds, Jason Montgomery of Bethel Park avenges a loss against Scott Joel of Bell Vernon. He wins by fall in the finals in 5'11".
And that was huge for Montgomery because he looked bad at Powerade against Joel. He just got, he just really didn't look like he was interested in being on the mat. And for him to come out and get a fall over Joel, a guy who's top 5 in the state, and Montgomery returning state medalist, this has to be a really good, big confidence boost for him going into the WPIAL championship.
182 pounds, a tight one for Tim Wallace of Albert Gallatin. He only wins 1-0 over Max Shaw, Thomas Jefferson.
And Max Shaw is a guy who came into the season late. He only has 17 matches on the year coming into this tournament, so we weren't really sure what Max Shaw we were going to see. But obviously he's right there with a guy like Tim Wallace, who's ranked number 2 in the state. So Wallace is someone I've been high on all year, especially after his performance at Powerade. So Max Shaw shows that he's obviously back to full strength here because he not only was tight with Tim Wallace, but he beat Mason Nicholson from Bell Vernon. He beat him 16-3, and that's not an easy task.
220 pounds, Ian Edenfield of Laurel Hines and Jake Slinger of Upper St. Clair. Edenfield, your winner, 8-4.
And this was a big-time matchup. Slinger and Edenfield, both these guys have been highly ranked in the state. At one time, they were 1 and 2 in the state. So Edenfield was able to get some of his offense going. And I'm not looking at it as well. This is going to be a tight match regardless. So we could see this actually for the next 3 weeks or next 2 weeks.
Right. Section 3, Ryan Sullivan of Shaler. He was your champion, but he had a tight match against Freddie Junko of North Allegheny. He beats him 6-2. Junko got to the finals by beating Dylan Chappell of Seneca Valley 7-2. Is this a matter of Junko just having a great tournament, or is there anything to worry about here with Sullivan?
I don't think it's anything to worry about with Sullivan. I mean, Sully's been wrestling pretty tough all season. We saw him at Powerade do really well. The counties, he just dominated. Junko is really tough, though. He's just kind of under the radar. He's been at 120 all year, comes down to 13. He was at 6 last year. So Junko's, he's going to challenge some of the top guys at 113, clearly, based on that performance against Sullivan.
145 pounds. Nick Montalbano of Seneca Valley beats Jack Cottespot of Butler in the semis 5-4 to get to the finals, but then he loses by major decision to Alex Hornfeck of Mars 10-0.
Alex Hornfeck is wrestling really tough right now, and because Montalbano is a guy who I had higher up in the rankings because they had a common opponent in Keyshawn Higgins, a guy that Hornfeck lost to, but Hornfeck coming away with a 10-0 decision over a very, very tough wrestler here. This is I don't know. I've been hearing a lot that this is his year to make it to the state tournament, Hornfeck.
152 pounds, Cole Spencer of Pine Richland dominates to a title. Do you think he's finally getting into that gear and getting to the right spot?
This wasn't a very deep weight class whatsoever, so I'm not surprised by this. The guy he wrestled in the finals, Conrad Harold, was 16-14 on the season. He's a freshman, so I'm not surprised to see it. This is just a really weak weight, but no, Cole Spencer is obviously wrestling really tough, so but he wasn't challenged here.
John Hoover of North Allegheny had to injury default in the finals at 160 pounds to Jake Richardson of Mars. We'll see if Hoover can bounce back to wrestle this weekend.
If he can, that's the luck of the Hoovers. Those Hoovers have never been healthy. Sean and John both. Sean was always banged up, so hopefully John gets healthy and he's able to compete because he's a threat.
182 pounds, Christian Saquette of Butler, a guy that we talked about Christmas time when he beat Dom Fundy of Best Center. He beat Zach Carsey of Fox Chapel in the semis by fall, and then he beats Justin Hart of Hampton in the finals 6-3.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good performance by Saquette. And Hart's been wrestling really, really tough as of late. So we saw him at the Allegheny County tournament have a really good tournament. And overall, this is Hart's only second loss in the season. So these guys, and he owns a win over Max Shaw as well. So, Saquette came in 12th and Hart was 8. So, I'm not surprised to see this flipping, rankings because Saquette's pretty tough.
Section 4, 113 pounds, Frankie Benora of Moon, Jordan Waters of West Allegheny have already wrestled several times this year. They go at it again in the section finals, but Benora avenges the last loss that he had against Waters. He beats him 10-3 in that final.
That was a huge win for Benora, a guy who, as you mentioned, wrestled Walters several times this year, but he lost to him last time they wrestled. And Walters had a tough semifinal match. I don't know if you saw this, but Gianni Martini from Trinity, a freshman, he gave him all he could handle, and Walters comes away with a 1-0 decision. So you look at that and you think, Walters had to wrestle twice before he wrestled in the finals against Benora. Benora only wrestled for 52 seconds. So Benora just really took it to him, a returning state medalist. And, he's poised. I think if he can wrestle like he did against Walters in the finals, he's going to give Ryan Sullivan all he can handle.
120 pounds, Logan Macri of Cannon-McMillan defeats Wyatt Henson of Waynesburg yet again, this time by the score of 5-1.
I feel like these two have wrestled 9 times already this year. They could wrestle 11.
126 pounds, Caleb Morris of Waynesburg down a weight class. He beats Jacob Ely of Hopewell by fall in the finals. Ely defeated Ken Heyman of Cannon-McMillan 8-1 in the semis.
Yeah, and 126 is not, I know we always talk about 120 and how deep that is, but 126 got a whole lot tougher when Caleb Morris came down, Gabe Willishaw came up, and Jacob Ely obviously proved that he's in that conversation. We don't get to see a whole lot of him, especially wrestling for Hopewell, but Ken Heyman is kind of a battle-tested wrestler. 30-8 on the year. So for Ely to beat him by an 8-1 decision definitely shows that he's in that mix.
138 pounds, I think the biggest surprise of the tournament, Tim Risco of Cannon-McMillan defeating Jackson Henson of Waynesburg 2-1 for the title.
Risco's been right there with everybody like Noah Levitt and some of the top wrestlers in the state. But this was a huge win, in my opinion. Risco beating Jackson Henson, who it just grinds out wins. Henson always finds a way to win. He's so good from the top position. He can slow down anybody. But Risco to come through and get that championship, that's huge. Henson's a guy who owns several wins over Noah Levitt. Risco, he wrestled Noah Levitt in the WPIAL finals, the team finals, and lost to him in overtime. So, yeah, this is 138 is going to be a slugfest.
Who gets the number 1 seed? Levitt, Henson, or Risco?
It has to be Levitt. I would say Levitt. Despite the fact that he lost to Henson twice, I would have to say it's Levitt because he won a section and he's a returning 2-time state medalist. Henson is not a Pennsylvania wrestler from he hasn't wrestled here before, so and he didn't win a section,
and he beat Risco. Levitt did, so
yeah, sure, right. So yeah, I would have to give it to 1 Levitt, 2 Risco, 3 Henson. That's where I would put it.
That's where I would put it as well. 152 pounds, Ty McGeary of West Allegheny. He wins in overtime over Trey Howard of Waynesburg.
Yeah, that was a really impressive win. McGeary's a guy he's been in the mix. He was 14th in the state coming into this weekend, and Trey Howard was 5. Howard just has like Jack Bloomer's number. He always finds a way to beat him. So really good showing by McGeary in overtime to get that win. Outside of that weight, not many other big surprises here in Section 4. No, as I said, I hate to say that things went as planned, but there really wasn't that many upsets as we talked about some of them. But next week, that's really when the fun begins. And it will start on Friday at Cannon-McMillan High School. The preliminaries will begin at 2:45 with the quarterfinals and first-round consolations set for 7 o'clock on Friday. Wrestling will begin back on Saturday with the second, third, and fourth-round consolations at 10:30. And starting at 10:30 with the second round. Semifinals are set to begin at noon. Consolation finals at 5:30, and your finals are at 7 o'clock on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it, Greg. I'll be there. I know you will be, and it's probably one of the toughest tournaments in the nation here, the WPIAL finals. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of good matchups for sure, and some interesting seeding questions. So we'll see what those brackets look like. I can't wait to see those brackets, and we'll obviously be providing them when they come out and analyzing them a little bit. Yeah, make sure you stay with us on PA Power Wrestling as we'll have the brackets for you, and we'll have a breakdown, and we'll be talking all about it as we get set for the matchups coming up on Friday. Should be a lot of fun. And these rankings, man, they're going to be shifting around. All the results pouring in from District 11, District 3, and as we see the sections here in District 7, these rankings are really starting to shape out, and we moved it to top 30 because there's just too much. So had to make it to top 30. So you can see the top 30 ranked wrestlers in the state coming up this week.
Make sure you stay with us for all the updated rankings, brackets. We have you covered here as we get set for the final 2 weeks of the high school wrestling season. Hard to believe it's almost coming to an end, but the best wrestling still to come.
Yes, it is. And then we got NCAAs right after that. So, man, this is it. These next couple of weeks are going to be really, really fun, and they're going to be tiresome, but I'm ready for it.
I want to thank Bishop McCoy of Southside for joining us on the show. From my broadcast partner, Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening in to War Up on the WPIAL.